I realized that the marriage, which I considered happy and almost ideal, ended at the very moment when I heard this phrase from Sylvia's lips. You know what phrase I'm talking about. "Honey, we need to talk," Sylvia said that fateful Wednesday afternoon as soon as I walked into the living room after returning from work. She was sitting in a bulky chair, which she had moved from its usual place in the living room so that it stood opposite my recliner, leaving about 6 feet between us. She was still wearing the clothes she wore to work, but no shoes. I turned around, walked down the hall to the kitchen, and got myself a beer. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through my head at lightning speed about what my loving wife, with whom we lived for 11 years, wanted to tell me. The most insistent one was that she was going to admit that she cheated on me, and if that was the case, our marriage was over. On her face was an expression of a mixture of dissatisfaction and anger, one that I am sure every man in the world has seen on the face of his wife at least once in his life. I forced myself to smile, walked up to her, leaned over, and tried to kiss her, like we did every day since we started living together and throughout our entire life together. But she turned her head away, and my kiss fell on her cheek. I sat down on the sofa instead of my chair, and the expression of surprise on Sylvia's face showed that my unexpected move had unsettled her. She started to sit up, but I motioned for her to stay put. Taking a long sip of beer, I said that I was ready to listen to her. "Dawn, you know I love you and I don't want to hurt you, but I'm bored with our sex life and I think we need to change something to spice it up. I believe we need to open up our marriage. We could date other people and then tell each other about it. It will be something new, exciting, and will bring us closer. Please, darling, don't look at me like that. Everything will be great, I promise. It's just sex, for God's sake. That doesn't mean we'll stop loving each other." "Donald, please tell me what you think," Sylvia said, her eyes mixed with worry and hope. To be honest, I didn't know what to answer because I was in complete shock. For the first time, I heard from her that she was bored in bed. After 12 years of marriage, I knew that we both perfectly understood what each other liked and how, and I tried to bring variety, but she never complained. I always did my best to make her feel pleasure every time we made love, and I knew that she was not a good enough actress to imitate it. I also knew how her mind worked, and I was sure that such ideas could not have occurred to her on their own. But I couldn't just go and ask where she got these idiotic thoughts. I didn't want to be with other women, even though I fantasized about it, and I certainly didn't want her to be with other men and even tell me about it. This is one of those fantasies that never occurred to me, and the very thought of it made me feel sick. I took a deep breath, leaned over, placed the beer on the floor at my feet, and then looked at the woman I had loved for the past 15 years. Memories of all those mostly happy years flashed through my head, and I leaned back, letting them flash before my mind's eye. I remembered the party where we first met at the beginning of our sophomore year of college. A friend dragged me there, just like her friend. I remember how we talked all night long, and how even then we both felt that we had found our other half, which led to our relationship. I remember how inseparable we were when we weren't in class or sleeping in our dorms. I remembered our passionate embrace, except for the sex itself, because she wanted to remain innocent until the wedding. I remembered graduation, how we found a job in the same small town, moved into the same apartment to save money, and the night when she abandoned her vow of chastity and gave herself to me. A year of living together without marriage, which our parents called sinful, and we called the most joyful and adventurous time in our lives. Getting to know each other, learning about sex, how we learned to please each other, what we liked and what we didn't. The wedding, the honeymoon, buying the house we were currently living in, moving up the career ladder. All these happy memories flashed before me like a movie in my head. But after them, unbidden, came heavy, painful memories that I was forced to relive, because they were as much a part of our life as the joyful moments, and I knew that it was about to end if I failed to stop the approaching train of disaster. Our attempts to have a child, examinations that showed that I cannot have children, our common tears at this news. I remembered how her parents died in a plane crash en route to Las Vegas, where they were going for the first time, and the memorial service where there were only photographs of them because the fire after the crash destroyed everything except the metal debris of the plane and the metal in the cargo hold. When this film played in my head, out of the chaos that reigned in my mind, at least some kind of strategy, albeit hasty, began to take shape. Why didn't you say anything before, Syl? Maybe we can discuss other ways to diversify our sex life. What about role-playing games? We could try. The possibilities for role-playing games are limited only by our imagination, and you know how rich it is. A cheerleader and a football player, a housewife and a repairman, or even a street woman and a client. See, Syl, I just came up with 3 options on the fly. We can try anything you want, without the participation of others. Please tell me there is something we can do other than open up our marriage. I pleaded with her, watching as her face changed expressions, first confusion, then anger, and then determination. No, everything will be as I decided. Ronnie said you'll try to talk me out of it, but I've already made up my mind. We will have an open marriage, and this is not subject to discussion, Syl said in that firm tone that appeared in her when she was adamant. At that moment, I realized 3 things. Firstly, now I know who put the idea of an open marriage in her head. Veronica Blake, nicknamed Ronnie, was her colleague and the most famous woman of easy virtue in our city, and it seems very proud of it. Secondly, judging by her tone, it was useless to argue with her this evening. Thirdly, if I failed to somehow convince her, our marriage is doomed. The only unknown was when exactly it would end. But Syl was wrong about one thing. Our conversation was not over until I spoke out. I stood up abruptly, ignoring the beer that spilled onto the carpet when I accidentally touched the can. I walked around my chair and stood in front of Sylvia so I could look her in the face. Okay, Syl, I understand that you have firmly decided. But I will also try to convince you. I listened to you, now it's your turn to listen to me. I don't want an open marriage. I don't want you to give yourself to other men, and I hope you understand the consequences of what you're about to do. But Dawn, she began, but I raised my hand, demanding that she shut up. I'm not finished, Syl. You can say whatever you want once I have spoken. I'm telling you straight, I don't want you to do this. But if you are so confident in your decision, then I set the rules. Rule number 1, you will not bring your gentlemen to our house. If they come for you and you are not ready, let them wait on the porch or in the car. Rule number 2, you will not spend a dime of our money on anything related to your dates. If your current clothes aren't sexy enough, let someone who doesn't like them buy you something that suits him. This also applies to linen, jewelry, shoes, perfume, everything. If I find out that you spent even a penny of our money on your dates, one of us will leave this house. Most likely it will be me. And then we'll see how the person left here copes with paying the bills. Rule number 3, the most important. I don't want to hear a word about what you do on your dates. I don't care who these men or women are, where you go, and even less what exactly you do there. Why are you so surprised, Syl? How do I know what you want to try? How do I know if you're interested in women? How do I know if you dream of being with 2 men at once, or even more? Damn it, just 10 minutes ago, I didn't even know that you weren't happy with our sex life. I didn't say that she didn't suit me, I said that I was bored, Syl objected. I think we're stuck in a rut, and I want to change something. I do this not only for myself, but also for us. Ronnie says her husband Rick gets really turned on when she comes back from a date and tells him all the dirty things she did with another man. According to her, after that they had great sex, and if it's Friday or Saturday, they may not go to bed at all until the morning. Are you sure you want to keep rule number 3? Syl asked, using her most seductive voice, the one that always made me change my mind before. But not this time. Yes, I'm sure, Sylvia. If you break it or any other rule, I will leave. I will leave this house. I will leave this marriage. I will leave your life. I don't care what Ronnie says. I'm not Rick. I don't want to hear stories about your renewed sex life. I don't want to see you with other men, and I repeat again, I don't want you to do this. Now our conversation is over. I'm leaving. In the meantime, think about where your choice leads. Remember, everything has consequences. Having said this, I raised my voice. Anger still got the better of my self-control. I ignored her pleas to stop, walked out of the living room, walked to the door leading to the garage, jumped into the car, and drove away. I drove to the nearest bar, where I slowly drank beer for the next hour, seething with anger and then wallowing in pain, trying to find some solution to the mess Sil had gotten me into. I knew that talking would only make her even more stubborn about her decision, so I decided that action was the only way out. No, I didn't intend to physically restrain her. I thought about winning her over again, because once, 15 years ago, I didn't even have to do this to win her heart. When I left the bar, all the flower shops were already closed, and the only option was the flower section at the local supermarket. There I was able to find half a dozen yellow roses, Sil's favorite flowers, that looked fresh enough to bring home as a first step toward her return. Sil was sitting on the sofa with a mobile phone in her hands, and there were crumpled paper napkins lying on the sofa and on the floor nearby. Her eyes were red, her face was swollen. I realized that she had most likely been crying most of the time while I was gone. When she saw the vase of roses in my hands, her face brightened for a moment, but within a second, it was replaced by rage. Ronnie told me that you would try to change my mind with gifts and fake affection. This won't work, Dawn. No matter what you do, I'll still go on a date on Friday night. So you can throw them in the trash right away. I don't want them. Her words and attitude instantly shattered my last chance of salvation, and I did not even try to contain the rage that flared up in me. I threw the vase in her direction with all my strength, but high enough that she couldn't hit it, even if she stood up at that moment. By pure chance, the vase turned upside down right above her, and water along with the roses spilled onto her. Fake weasel. Fake weasel. I've never been insincere with you, Sil. Never since we met. Your girlfriend is getting you into big trouble, and I don't hesitate to say, I told you so, when everything goes to hell. I'm going to watch basketball in the office. Good night, I shouted, seeing tears flowing from her eyes again. I rushed into the office, slammed the door behind me, and locked it forcefully. Then he plopped down into his old, but still comfortable recliner chair and furiously pressed the TV button on the remote control. The next day, or even now, I couldn't tell which college teams were playing on ESPN that night. I simply fell out of reality. A hurricane of emotions raged in my head. I was brought back to the present moment by the need of nature. When I looked at the clock on the wall with the logo of Seal and I's College, I realized that I had been sitting in a distant state for a couple of hours, and there was only an hour left before my usual bedtime. Yes, I always went to bed at the same time. I got up early, it always was, and in order to get enough sleep, I tried to follow my sleep schedule. I went into the guest toilet, relieved myself, and then went to look for Sil. She was in our bedroom, wearing one of her flannel nightgowns. This usually meant she wasn't in the mood, and I usually didn't try to seduce her. But if she was going on a date on Friday, then that night was my last chance to enjoy it again. I went into the bathroom, took off my clothes, and threw them into the laundry basket. Then, as always, he went to bed naked. Sil immediately turned away from me, turned off the lamp at the head of the bed, and lay down with her back turned. I moved closer. Stop it, Dawn. You know I'm not in the mood, Sil said angrily, trying to push me away and free herself. I ignored her and continued. She gave up. When I finished my business, Sil snorted in irritation, then literally jumped off the bed and went into the bathroom with a roar. I turned off the bedside lamp, caught my breath, and, surprisingly, fell asleep before she returned to bed. My body clock woke me up 15 minutes before my 5 a.m. alarm. I got dressed in my workout clothes in the bathroom, grabbed my work clothes that were hanging there in advance, and left the house, heading to the 24-hour gym that was just a few blocks from my place of work. I did my usual workout an hour and 20 minutes, then took a shower and headed to the office. I had breakfast with a bowl of cereal right at my desk and completely immersed myself in my work to take my mind off the problems at home. Just before lunch, I went to the reception desk to begin putting my plan into action to prepare myself a backup plan for sexual gratification. Even if Syl was no longer available to me after Friday, that didn't mean I had to abstain from sex until the divorce. Despite the fact that Mindy Reynolds, our secretary, was 10 years younger than me and had a curvaceous figure, she had openly flirted with me since the first day of work, and now I was going to take advantage of it. I spent 10 minutes flirtatiously chatting, hinting that I would be free after Friday if she was interested. Judging by her reaction, she was really interested. I ended up getting her number and promised to call her on Saturday. I hoped that this call would mean that everything had been resolved and I was free again, but even if not, I would not be upset in that case. I would have agreed to meet with her on Saturday evening. After work, I went to Radio Shack and bought sound-activated voice recorders, motion-sensing cameras with Wi-Fi, and the cheapest laptop that met the software requirements for these devices. At a nearby hardware store, I purchased the rest of the things needed for my plan. In the Plank House on Thursday evening, on the eve of the fateful Friday, tension reached its limit. Syl made a scene again when I tried to reason with her, so I retreated to the office after dinner and began writing down items for what I had to do the next day. Before going to bed, I locked the notebook in my briefcase and placed it by the garage door so I wouldn't forget it in the morning. I didn't usually bring it home. On Friday morning, I left home at the usual time, but after training, having received approval from my superiors for the day off, I returned back, knowing that Seal would already be at work. I installed the cameras and voice recorders, downloaded the software, and checked that the data was being recorded on the computer as needed. I also installed hardware store gadgets on 3 of the doors and moved most of my belongings from the bedroom to the guest room, leaving enough behind so that Syl, who was busy getting ready for her evening, wouldn't notice it was missing. I'll pick up the rest later when she's not home. I wanted to cry when I saw what she wore when she came downstairs on our date, the night our marriage died. The tight black dress we had chosen for our 10th anniversary emphasized her breasts, the graceful curve of her waist, and wide hips that might have turned off some men, but they had turned me on for the last 15 years. No, Sylvia had never been thin, but to me she was beautiful with her smooth curves, long brown hair, green eyes, and a neat nose that seemed to be at odds with the rest of her features. Her lips were naturally plump, unlike some women, and I loved kissing them. The finishing touch was the stiletto heels, which finally dashed my last hope that I was mistaken about her plans for this evening. I made one last attempt to save our marriage. Sylvia, I beg you, please don't go out tonight. Stay here with me and let's think together about how we can spice up our sex life, but just the two of us. I promise I'll try anything that doesn't involve pain or other people, I said, hating myself for the whine in my voice. It's too late. I've already decided everything. If you wait for me, I promise you won't regret it, she purred, approaching me. A car horn blared loudly outside, and I hurried to the window, both to see the car of that bastard who was too lazy to even get out of it for a date with my future ex-wife, and just to distance myself from Sylvia herself. It was not a flashy sports car, as I expected, but a regular 4-door sedan. I couldn't see the make from that angle, but it didn't matter. The large dent on the rear passenger door would make it easily recognizable if I ever needed to find it in the future. I walked around the living room in an arc to avoid Sylvia and saw a puzzled expression flash across her face. I didn't respond to her goodbye as she walked out the door, one last time as my faithful and loving wife. However, I still had some work to do, so I suppressed the anger and tears that filled me at that moment and began the next stage of my plan. My car was parked in our friend's double garage a few houses away, and all the lights in the house were off except for the porch light when Sylvia returned home at 2 in the morning. I was sitting in the chair from the living room, but now in the guest bedroom, which from now on would be my room until the divorce was finalized. I knew that she had given herself to another man that night, otherwise she would not have returned so late. In my pocket, I had the digital camera she had given me for my 30th birthday, which was still working perfectly to capture any evidence of her infidelity if the opportunity arose. I didn't respond when she called me, checking to see if I was home, and stood up to follow her as she quickly walked past the open door of my room. She seemed to be crying, and my heart sank as it always did when I heard her cry. My emotional side wanted to come over and hug and comfort her like always before, but my rational side stopped me from doing so. I no longer considered her my wife and no longer desired her as before, from the moment we first met until today. I walked quietly, barefoot, down the hallway and stopped at the door to the master bedroom that would now be hers. Through the door I heard her cry, and with each sob my broken heart crumbled into dust. Then I heard the bed creak as she stood up, and a few moments later the sound of the bathroom door closing. I snuck into her room and saw her dress and bra on the floor. I looked for her panties, but they weren't there. First thought, the bastard kept them as souvenirs. Second, no, she most likely took them with her to the bathroom and threw them in the laundry basket. I'll try to get them tomorrow. Sylvia didn't lock the bathroom door, but that wasn't surprising. We stopped locking our doors a long time ago, or, to be honest, even closing them completely. I opened the door, glad that I had pre-treated the hinges with WD-40. I had my camera ready when she came out of the shower, and the bathroom lighting was bright enough that the flash wouldn't go off. Sylvia was drying her hair with a towel, covering her face, and did not immediately notice me. I managed to take 2 photographs with marks on her body that were not left by me. The noise of the camera shutter finally reached her consciousness. "Dawn, what the hell are you doing? Stop taking pictures of me like this," she screamed, grabbing the robe and hugging it tightly to herself, hiding her nakedness. I didn't say a word, I just turned around and walked back to my room. He locked the door, knowing that she would not be able to open the new door lock with a key. Then I put on my old full-ear headphones, turned on the mini stereo I found in the attic and fixed the day before, and was finally able to fall asleep. Because of the late hour, my body clock only allowed me to sleep until 7 on Saturday morning. I was as quiet as possible when I left the house, picked up my neighbor's car, went to the gym, where I showered after my workout, then stopped at a small diner for breakfast and headed to the main branch of our bank. Unlike the branch next to my house, which only had a cash register on Saturdays, this branch was open until noon. I withdrew half of the funds from our joint savings and checking account, and, with the help of the manager on duty, issued cancellation requests for 2 joint credit cards. Since they were the only bank in town open on Saturday, other than the drive-through, I opened a new checking account at my old bank and told them that Sylvia was not to be notified. Any correspondence from the bank that needed to be mailed had to go to my new mailbox, which I had set up the day before. I was assured that my wishes would be carried out exactly. I went to a national chain restaurant known for never closing and called Mindy from the pay phone near the restrooms. "Hi, Mindy, it's me, Dawn. I'm officially single again, so how about I stop by your place tonight with a couple of steaks, and we can get to know each other better? Can't you take me somewhere, Dawn?" She whined into the phone, and I almost changed my mind at that very moment, but I knew that she was interested in me, so I continued to follow my plan. "No, Mindy, I can't. I promise to explain everything in the evening if you are still interested, and if not, I will understand. Okay, let's stay at home. Do you know how to get to my apartment?" "Yes, Mindy, I know. I'll see you around 7, okay? Or maybe it's 6. She answered, and I would have sworn on a stack of Bibles that there was genuine excitement in her voice. "At 6, so at 6. See you." After that, I went to a competitor of the cell phone company, whose company phone I was using, and signed up for a new phone with auto payments from my new bank account. The number of people I will share this number with will be extremely limited, and Sylvia will not be included in this list. I returned home a little after 1 in the afternoon, knowing that Sylvia was at that time shopping for groceries for the week. I looked for the panties that were supposed to go with the lacy black bra she had worn the day before, but I couldn't find them, concluding that Lover had taken them after all. I dressed for the weather and finished cutting leaves from the oak and hickory trees that grew around the house and were one of the reasons we decided to buy it in the first place. When the clipping bag was full, I dumped its contents into the compost pile and wondered if I would still be living in this house come spring planting season for my vegetable garden. I ignored Sylvia when I noticed her waving at me while holding a glass of water in her other hand. Every fall when I did this job, it was our cue to take a break and help her bring in her shopping. From that moment on, she could carry groceries and everything else heavy that she had been accustomed to putting on me for years herself. After finishing cleaning up the lawnmower, I realized I had an hour to get ready and head out on my date. I walked past Sylvia, who was curled up on the living room sofa, without saying a word to her. Locked in my bathroom, I ignored her knocking and pleas for the door to open while I shaved and showered. When I left, she was no longer standing in front of the door, and I was able to get dressed calmly. "Where are you going, Dawn? We need to talk about last night," Sylvia began as I came down the stairs. "I'm going out to dinner with a friend, and have you already forgotten about rule number 3? I don't want to hear a word about your night. Bye, and don't wait for me." I barked, and noticing how she turned pale at my tone, I headed to the car and drove away. I got to Mindy's apartment complex 5 minutes before my appointment time and parked on the opposite side of the building from her apartment. In fact, it was 2 buildings connected by a central passage, with the second and third floors having corridors connecting them. On the second floor, there was a small convenience store, a diner and a pizzeria, and on the third there were 2 laundries, one for each building. The doors between the buildings on the second floor remained open 24/7, except when a fire alarm sounded, then they were closed, creating a fireproof barrier. I walked up the stairs to the second floor, entered the building I was looking for, and went up 3 more floors until I was on the 5th. At exactly 6 o'clock in the evening, I rang Mindy's doorbell. The excitement I felt waiting for her to open instantly disappeared as soon as I saw her. Mindy looked like she was about to go out rather than stay at home. Her long blonde hair was loose and styled to flatter her face. His blue eyes sparkled with excitement, and his smile was the widest and whitest I had ever seen in my life. She was wearing a tight light blue dress that followed the curves of her body, much like what Sylvia had worn yesterday. On her feet are dark blue or black sandals with thin straps and 4-inch heels. She appears to have been to a beauty salon where a makeup artist professionally worked on her round but cute face. She looked delicious, and I planned to not only eat the steaks I brought, but also do something else. Judging by her wide smile and seductive pose, she didn't mind at all. "As promised, I brought steaks," I said, picking up the red and white cooler with a hinged lid that I had found and tidied up during my foray into the attic the day before. "You look amazing, Mindy, but you shouldn't have tried so hard and spent so much money when we're not even going anywhere where anyone else can see how beautiful you are." "I wanted to be beautiful for you, Dawn," she breathed, trying to give her voice Marilyn Monroe-style sensuality. "And I hoped that I could convince you about going out." "Sorry, but we can't go somewhere. If you let me in, I'll tell you why." Mindy stepped aside, still holding the door open, and I walked into her apartment, which was larger than I expected. It was neat, clean, and very tastefully furnished. I walked over to her couch, sat down, and patted the pillow next to me. Mindy came and sat next to me, not moving her hand away when I took her right hand in mine, turning to face her. "Mindy, I'm used to being honest, so I'll tell you everything as it is and explain why we can't date. You know my wife Sylvia, and you know that until Thursday I always ignored your advances because I loved her and didn't want to hurt her. But everything changed when she decided we needed an open marriage to spice up our sex life. Yesterday she went on a date and gave herself to another man. Although I still have some feelings for her, we no longer exist as a couple. The point is, although there are no winners in divorce, I want me to get the most out of this divorce, not her. Therefore, only she is allowed to appear in the city with other men, and I cannot be seen with other women. We can meet here in your apartment if you want, but we can't go out in public together. If you need anything more, just say so, and after tonight I won't bother you again. Oh, Dawn, I'm sorry Sylvia did that to you. You really surprised me on Thursday when you flirted with me at the reception. I'll be fine dating here without going out. Mindy answered happily, and the temptation became too great. I leaned over and kissed her on the lips. Mindy, please, no marks on your neck or face. I don't care if you leave marks on your body where they won't be visible under your clothes, but not higher, okay? Okay, honey, now stop pushing me away and let me light a fire in you, Mindy growled, and I wondered if I was getting into something I couldn't control. That was amazing, Dawn. No one has ever given me so much pleasure, Mindy squeezed out when she caught her breath. Your wife must be crazy if she thinks this is boring. We haven't had something like this for a long time, Mindy. If we continue to meet, I'm sure we'll someday have a situation where things won't be so fast. But don't worry, I will always do my best to make sure you enjoy sex as much as I do. What other if, dear? We will definitely see each other again, and as many times as I can persuade you. I told you it's okay for me to stay at home, so there's no reason for you not to come see me. Well, there is still one reason. I'm still married, and I want to achieve good conditions in the divorce. I thought that 3 times a week would be enough for me to come to you. Is this right for you, Mindy? Yes, Mindy squealed, pulling my head to hers and pressing her lips to mine. I managed to escape her embrace just long enough to quickly make us something to eat before we went back to her bed. I made love to her slowly and tenderly for a couple of hours, and then took a shower and returned home a little after 11 at night. Unlike the previous evening, the lights were on throughout the house, and I realized that Sylvia was waiting for me. I saw her curled up on the couch and tried to sneak past the living room before she could speak, but she was faster than I expected. Where have you been all evening, Dawn? She shouted, trying to get up from the sofa. I told you I'm having dinner with a friend. We had one thing to do, and we lost track of time, I replied, continuing to walk towards the stairs. Was it another woman? If so, who is she? Sylvia asked a little more quietly than before. Are you trying to force me to break the third rule, Sylvia? It won't work. I don't want to hear about what you do, and I don't have to tell you what I do or with whom. Now I'm going to bed because I had a hard day after a hard night. I'm tired and I need sleep. Good night, Sylvia, I shouted as I hurried up the stairs. I ignored her cries of stop and come down and talk to me. I went into my room, locked the door, and went back to bed with my headphones and mini stereo. I woke up at 7 on Sunday and got dressed for the day. Sylvia stood at the foot of the stairs in the same clothes as the night before, only now they were rumpled and looked even worse. Apparently she had slept in them on the sofa. I saw her eyes widen in surprise when she saw what I was carrying. Is this what I'm thinking? She asked as the surprise on her face turned to anger. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like, Sylvia. I told you not to let this happen in the house. Why did you bring him down from the attic? Because I want to see if I can shoot straight again by Thanksgiving. I'm going to hunt rabbits with my father and his friends, if possible, I said, throwing the case with the gun over my shoulder, trying to point the barrel in the direction opposite to Sylvia. What about me? What should I do for Thanksgiving then? Sylvia sobbed. You can help Mom prepare dinner or spend the day with your new friends. Honestly, Sylvia, I don't care. Now I'll have breakfast and then go to the shooting club and shoot at clay pigeons. I'll be back later today. Goodbye, I said firmly, going out into the garage, putting the cover in the back seat of the car and driving away. I enjoyed the day at the shooting club and thought that after a couple of practices, I would be able to shoot accurately enough again to not embarrass myself in front of my father and his friends. They didn't have a 9-year break, like I did, and they regularly sharpened their eyes. They went to the club twice a month outside the hunting season. I needed to return to old hobbies or find new ones, since now I was not going to spend all my free time from work with the person with whom, until she listened to her new friend and threw our marriage into the dustbin, I preferred to spend every free minute. Yes, I abandoned most of the things I did in my free time before meeting Sylvia, because I liked being around her and doing everything together, and I did not regret it. When I returned home around 4 that Sunday evening, Sylvia was not home, which gave me time to check on my laptop to see if there was anything interesting on the audio or video files. Sylvia called Ronnie and managed to tell Ronnie through her sobs that I had been avoiding her since Friday night and didn't want to hear about what she was doing with Jerry, so at least I knew her boyfriend's name. I turned off the recording when it was enough and put the laptop back in the closet so that even if Sylvia managed to open the door to my room, she wouldn't find it. I was watching ESPN in the office when Sylvia returned around 5:30. I walked out when I heard her knock on the door after she discovered it was locked. She was wearing the same clothes as the day before, but now they looked even more rumpled. Apparently, she tried to wash away the traces of tears, but her red and swollen eyes spoke for themselves. Dawn, I made a mistake on Friday. I'm sorry. Can we please sit down and talk? I love you, and I don't want to lose what we had, she begged. You love me, right? Well, you didn't prove that to me on Friday night when you ignored my requests not to do what you had in mind. I'm sorry, Sylvia, but it's too late. We've already lost what we had before. You yourself wanted it and did it, even after my warnings about the consequences. So here is the result. I told you so. But, she began, but I interrupted her. Nothing more to discuss. The Duke versus the Wake Forest game is about to start on the AC broadcast on ESPN, so good night, I said and closed the door in her face, hearing her son when she realized I had locked the door. The next morning, Monday, I called the divorce lawyer Jake Mathers had recommended to me, who had helped him avoid giving his ex-wife everything he had earned after working 25 years at Fox Manufacturing, where we worked. I made an appointment for the end of the week. This lawyer did not hesitate to use the threat of releasing a video incriminating Jake's ex-wife and her boss. They had sex on the job, on work hours, and in violation of company policy to force her to sign divorce papers, giving Jake full custody of their two sons, 60% of the remaining assets, and a deferred sale of their home until their 13-year-old graduated from college or moved out on his own, whichever came first. When the female judge presiding over their divorce case asked her husband if she was sure this was what she wanted, she answered yes and asked the judge to grant the divorce. The judge had no reason to refuse. I was quite happy with a lawyer with this approach. The next episode happened on Wednesday morning when I finally answered Sylvia's 10th call to my office. Dawn, what the hell did you do? Both of my credit cards were declined at Starbucks this morning, and I barely had enough cash to pay for my latte, she yelled. I canceled our credit cards while I was at the bank on Saturday morning. By the way, it's about time I told you that I withdrew half the money from my savings and checking accounts and opened a new account in my name only. And now only 30% of my salary will go to your account after this week. With this amount, I cover half of my house expenses. What? Why did you do this? My salary is not enough to cover half of our monthly expenses, she screamed even louder. It'll be enough if you stick to the budget I made for you. It sits on the kitchen counter under the Mr. Coffee maker. Coffee, which I found in the attic and cleaned out. I fixed the clock, and now you can program it again so that your coffee is ready when you get up. By the way, I bought a new coffee pot at the department store to replace the cracked one. But, but, but you can't do this to me. I can't go back to regular coffee. Dawn, I demand that you stop this madness and go back to being the loving, caring husband you used to be. Well, you're right about one thing, Sylvia. What is it, Dawn? If I suddenly started behaving in the old way again, it would be a pretense, because in reality, I don't want to do that anymore. You can demand anything, but that doesn't mean I will obey. Be glad that I included in the total expenses the payment for the Lexus coupe that you so wanted. I'm busy, Sylvia, so good luck, I said and hung up the phone, immediately unplugging it. I switched my work mobile phone to vibration and didn't answer calls from her number all day. I thought about stopping at a bar after work to delay the inevitable scene that I was sure was waiting for me at home. But in the end, I went straight home, as I always did before the recent events. Surprisingly, Sylvia did not yell at me from the doorway. Dawn, honey, forgive me. I made a terrible mistake on Friday, but I promise it won't happen again. Can we please talk about what I need to do so that you will forgive me and everything will go back to the way it was? Sylvia greeted me in the hallway, dressed in her sexiest sheer red negligee and a matching pair of bra and panties. I'm sorry that you consider what happened to be a mistake, but you won't lure me with sex and fake love, I said, taking a moment to throw back her own words. Tell me honestly, Sylvia, do you think I can sleep with you when you still have fresh traces of betrayal? Go ahead and put on something that will cover it. My words predictably brought tears to her eyes, and she sobbed, ran upstairs, and slammed the door to her bedroom. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a beer, and checked what she was cooking on the stove. He turned on the burner and finished cooking dinner, after which he put it on his plate, took another bottle of beer, and went to his office. When I later checked the records from my devices, I discovered that it was Ronnie who gave her the idea to seduce me and bring me back. I wondered why they didn't discuss such things at work, but I couldn't ask because that would expose my listening equipment. As usual, I fell asleep with headphones on my head and the mini stereo on. The next day I went to see a lawyer for the first time. After the standard greetings and discussion of payment, I wrote Charles Wellington a check from my new account as collateral. As soon as he realized that I had withdrawn some of the money from the joint accounts and opened a new one, his face turned red and the veins in his neck bulged. "Tell me you didn't completely close your old accounts and empty them to zero," he shouted. "No, I simply withdrew half from each, both savings and current, and opened a new account with this money only in my name." "Well, then it's not so bad. Now tell me why you want to divorce your wife." "Because last Friday she cheated on me after she suddenly announced on Wednesday that she was bored with our intimate life and wanted an open marriage. I tried to reason with her from Wednesday to Friday and even begged her not to do this, not to give herself to another, but she still did it. I didn't tolerate and don't want to be a cuckold, so it's over. I don't want her sexually anymore. That's why I need a divorce." "What evidence do you have of treason?" I threw on the table the photographs that I had printed from the flash card of the digital camera, where marks on Sylvia's body were visible. He lingered on the pictures of her breasts and then placed them face down. "I'm afraid this won't be enough. You either need photos or videos of her in public in a romantic setting with someone else or evidence of the sex itself. I'm not sure that this will happen. She has already come to me in tears confessing that she made a mistake and will not do it again, says that she still loves me and begs me to forgive. I don't care anymore. She didn't listen when I asked her not to cheat. She didn't discuss with me that she was bored, but continued to communicate with her friend, who suggested the idea of an open marriage. Well, our state is a no-fault state, so I can get a divorce, but then everything will be divided in half if you don't have children. There are no children, but I don't want to divide everything in half. I'm not to blame for what happened. I think it's unfair if I have to divide all the property equally, although it was she who cheated on me. You can't achieve anything better without compromising evidence. What if we just draw up a divorce project that is beneficial to me? There is no rush to submit documents right now, in case something happens soon that will give us this very lever." "Yes, that can be done," Charles nodded. For the next 2 weeks, when I wasn't at Mindy's, I tried to avoid Sylvia at home. If I managed to get past before she started her, "I'm sorry, I was wrong, I understood everything. I still love you and just tell me how to get you back." Then I either locked myself in the office or bedroom or went to the bar for a couple of hours. She hasn't been out since she returned Friday morning. Although Ronnie encouraged her, she did not want to lose hope that my anger and pain would subside and I would forgive her. I found out that she bought herself a new toy to satisfy her desires. This made me smile maliciously because most of my divorced acquaintances complained that after the divorce they were forced to satisfy themselves, while their exes continued their relationships with lovers, because of which the family broke up. I carefully disguised my trips to Mindy, and although Sylvia suspected that I had another woman, she had no evidence. This continued until the Monday after Thanksgiving, when my boss and the owner of the company called me into his office and thereby completely changed my life. "Dawn, I'd like you to meet Rachel Connors," Mr. Fox began, pointing to a beautiful black-haired woman standing near one of the two chairs. Actually, I'm Rachel Wells again, and Dawn and I know each other. How are you doing, Dawn? She said after the performance. It could have been better, but my problems are unlikely to be of interest to anyone. How are you, Rachel? Broke the self-esteem of another man. I turned to the woman who once destroyed along with my self-confidence, back in the first semester of college. She then not only refused me when I plucked up the courage to ask her out, but she did it in such a way that I was also publicly humiliated, and for the rest of the year I did not dare to approach any girl. Only the self-esteem of the ex-husband and his lawyer. I know, many years have passed since our first year, and I regret the way I treated you then, Dawn. I was an arrogant, spoiled rich girl who thought I was better than most of my classmates. I assure you that I'm not like that now, Rachel said, and I believed that she was sincere. Mr. Fox, what's going on? I asked the boss, trying not to look at one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen and about whom I had once secretly dreamed. At 180 centimeters, Rachel was 10 centimeters taller than me, and although she seemed to have gained weight after the 18 years we had been in college, it only benefited her, emphasizing her figure in the right places. Her black hair was still long, with shiny curls, styled in a hairdresser's style that accentuated her face. Sparkling brown eyes, a nose that seemed smaller, possibly a rhinoplasty, plump lips that looked bigger than I remembered, and dazzling white teeth, a face worthy of magazine covers or movie screens, not my boss's cluttered office. Sit down, Dawn and Miss Wells, and I will explain everything, Mr. Fox told me with his biggest smile ever. The only other person I saw like this was my best friend Tommy Janes, when at age 11 he stole a candy bar from both of us at a 7-Eleven, and we ran away without anyone noticing. Dawn, you know that Miss Wells's firm is one of our largest and most loyal clients. So when her dad called and asked if I knew anyone who could help solve a problem with their new line of presses, I immediately thought of you. You have already found solutions to our problems more than once and saved us time and money, while other engineers said that you couldn't do it. I want you to work with Miss Wells as a consultant to help her find a solution. You will still be an employee of Fox Manufacturing and will receive all the benefits that you have now. If your solutions fix their problem, a bonus will be paid from Wells Industries, and the proceeds will be split 60% by you and 40% by Fox Manufacturing. Why can't Wells Industries engineers find and fix the problem themselves? I asked, turning to Rachel and trying not to notice how her beauty made me feel excited again. Almost all of our engineers are old and too afraid or too numb to try something new. And those who are younger and perhaps can think outside the box, my father does not take them seriously because he trusts those who have worked with him almost as long as he has. And why do you think that he will make the decisions that I propose? I continued. Okay, Rachel, I'll help, I replied. I need a couple of hours to collect some materials. I think you'll have to buy me lunch today, and I'll talk about it over the meal. I need to talk to Mr. Fox when you come out, so I'll wait outside for you. It was great to see you again, and I look forward to working together. Mr. Fox and I are done. Where do you want to have lunch? Rachel asked, standing up. I just had time to cool down a little from excitement while listening to her, and also got up. Mr. Fox, like a polite host, also stood up. Any roadhouse, but I prefer Texas than Logan's. Meet me there around noon. See you later, Rachel. When she left, I negotiated the details of the division of the bonus with Mr. Fox and increased my share from the agreed upon 60% to 85%. Then I returned to the office and began collecting materials that would be useful to me. I had a special position at Fox Manufacturing. I was actually the only person in the research and development department. I managed to solve many problems, which saved the company time and money, and also developed new techniques and innovations, for which I was given almost complete freedom of action and was not required to report every 5 minutes. Being both a curious and highly motivated person, I worked as hard as everyone else, if not harder, and earned a company car, a company cell phone, and the right to come and go as I pleased. All this allowed me to test not only our electric motor, which we submitted to Wells for their presses, but also 3 of our competitors' motors. For the first time in my memory, Wells chose the cheapest of the 4 options, and now they are facing problems with durability and warranty. I wasn't going to tell Rachel or Mr. Fox that I already had a solution. I was going to take the opportunity to work with Rachel and maybe, with luck, impress her enough to interest her in more than just a professional way. I enjoyed the sexual relationship with Mindy, but I knew it wouldn't go any further, even though I felt Mindy expected more. She was fun, the sex was amazing, but we were too different to form a serious, lasting connection. I liked almost all music, but I couldn't stand rap, and Mindy only listened to it. I played sports, but Mindy didn't, and didn't even consider the possibility. I loved trying different foods, and Mindy was completely against any experimentation with food. I would relax by reading books or watching sports, and Mindy would just lay on the couch, watching whatever was on TV, even if it was boring and stupid. Mindy started complaining that we weren't going out, even though I tried to make our meetings at her apartment feel like dates and not just sex. I would bring DVDs of old movies that she said she had never seen, hoping she would like them. We would cuddle on her couch until the sexual tension became too much and one of us, usually her, would interrupt the movie to get intimate. I brought CDs of music and we danced in her dining room, which invariably ended in sex. I once accidentally met her and her friends at a club on a Friday night and spent most of the evening dancing with all 3 of them. I didn't spend any more time with Mindy than I did with her friends, and at the end of the evening, I left alone to go to Mindy's the next day for our regular Saturday meeting. I kept telling her that even after the divorce, it would probably take me a long time before I was ready for a serious relationship. I knew that my relationship with Mindy was coming to an end, but now that Rachel was on the horizon, it didn't bother me at all. Our lunch with Rachel went even better than I could have hoped for. We spent 2 hours together, and only the first 20 minutes after eating talked about the matters for which we met. The rest of the time, we told each other how our lives turned out after college. I was delighted to learn that she was not seriously dating anyone, and she expressed regret about my problems in my marriage. It became clear to both of us that there was an attraction between us, which made me even more hopeful that I could get her to go out with me once our business partnership ended. I started work at Wells Industries on Tuesday, and for 2 days I pretended to understand their problem, but gradually I began to feel guilty about what I was doing. On Wednesday after work, I asked Rachel to go out to dinner, and, to my surprise, she agreed. "Rachel, I need to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't change your opinion of me," I began after dinner. "In fact, I already had a ready answer to your question when you came to Mr. Fox's office on Monday. I didn't say right away because I wanted to work with you and maybe show you what I've become, not the scared freshman I was when we first met. I was hoping that I could get to know you better and that I would have a chance to ask you out on a date. But my honesty does not allow me to further mislead you, which is why I invited you to dinner. Rachel, you are still the most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I understand that a loser like me is nowhere near you. But if you ever need a friend, I'll always be there. Tomorrow, I will transfer all the collected data to Michael, and after that, I will disappear from your life. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry I tried to hide the truth so I could spend more time with you." I got up. "I'm leaving. You don't have to come to the office you gave me tomorrow morning. I guarantee that nothing that does not belong to me will leave this premises when I leave." What Rachel told me after that was the first of 2 big surprises I heard that evening. "Dawn, thank you for your honesty. Most men would continue to stall to stay with me longer. But you're wrong about one thing. You're actually out of my league. You achieved everything through your own labor, but almost everything I have was simply given to me. It seems to me that my dad gave me this project specifically so that I would fail, and then he would have a reason to force me to leave the company. I don't want to lose, and I need your help to prevent this from happening. Please return to the factory tomorrow. I need you to help Wells Industries become more productive and profitable, just like you did with Fox Manufacturing. I'll pay you cash for your time and a bonus of 10% of all the money the company saves from your suggestions. You will have complete freedom of movement around the plant, You will be able to talk to anyone, and you will report only to me. Will you do this for me, Dawn? I want to run my dad's company when he retires, and I think with your help I can do it, Rachel told me. I don't know, Rachel. Mr. Fox treats me very well, and I don't want to be unfaithful to him. Can I have some time to think? I'm not asking you for trade secrets, and I don't want you to betray Mr. Fox. I just want you to look at how we operate and tell you what we can change to make the company more profitable. I'll give you some time, but I can't wait too long. Please, Don, I will be forever grateful if you do this for me. I promise to think about it, Rachel, but I have to go home. Good night, I told her, getting up from the table. She also stood up from her side of the booth, and instead of shaking my outstretched hand, she hugged me. Leaning over, she whispered in my ear, I'll do whatever you want for you, Dawn. If you need anything, just say so. I felt my face burning, and I didn't know what exactly was coming from her words or from the touch of her body to mine. At that moment, I was close to accepting her offer, but my sense of loyalty to my employer and good friend did not allow me to do so. However, everything changed as soon as I returned home. Sylvia wasn't home, and I had time to listen to the backlog of phone calls on my laptop. The conversation that finally pushed me to help Rachel took place that evening. Oh God, Ronnie, I ruined everything. I heard Sylvia sobbing into the phone while talking to her slutty friend. Why do you say that, Sil? Ronnie asked her. I didn't listen to Don when he told me not to go on a date with Jerry that Friday. And when he finds out that I'm pregnant, he will divorce me. Are you pregnant? This is wonderful, Sil. Don won't be able to divorce you when he finds out you're carrying his child, Ronnie blurted out, delighted with the news. This is not his child. I'll have to disappear from the face of the earth when everyone finds out that I'm carrying someone else's child and Don files for divorce. I lost the only man I've ever loved, and I don't know what to do now. How do you know it's not his? God, Ronnie, do you even listen to me when I talk to you? You yourself asked why Don and I still don't have children when we first became friends. I told you then that Don couldn't have children. As soon as he finds out the truth, he will leave me, I'm sure. Sylvia, what are you not telling me? Is Don hitting you? No, he's too soft for that. But I know that he constantly humiliates you morally, calls you a dirty cheater, and then tries to prove that he is better than Jerry in bed. Don is not a weakling, and I don't want to hear you ever say anything bad about him, Ronnie, or our friendship will be over. Sylvia screamed into the phone. Okay, Sil, calm down. Not another bad word about Don. But why are you so sure that you lost him? He's ignoring me, that's why. He hasn't kissed me, or hugged me, or touched me in any way since I spent that night with Jerry. He sleeps in the guest bedroom, where he installed a new lock with a key that I can't find anywhere. He doesn't have dinner with me, doesn't talk, avoids me when he's at home, and stays late at work 3 or 4 times a week. I think he has another woman, but I have no proof. And when he finds out that I'm pregnant, he'll definitely leave me. What should I do, Ronnie? Come to me, we'll think together about what to do. The main thing is, under no circumstances tell Dawn that you are pregnant. Come on, come, while I make us some tea. Okay, Dawn should have been back a long time ago if he was going to come home today, and I don't want to spend another evening alone. I'll be with you in a few minutes. Thank you for having me, Ronnie. My wife's words about a good friend caused me to burst into rage. Good friend, damn it. She is the reason you are in this situation, but you are too stupid or blind to understand it. As soon as you began to believe her words more than mine, you signed your own death sentence. I would kill you both if I weren't afraid of going to jail. After this outburst of emotions, I took the flash drive from the office and downloaded the recording of the conversation onto it to give to Charles. Now I was determined to divorce Sylvia. I didn't care if she got half of everything, just to get rid of her. I returned to Wells Industries and told Rachel that I accepted her offer, but that no one should know about it. After handing over all the materials on how to fix the problems with the presses to Michael, I went to my lawyer. Charles told me that the recorded phone conversation between Sylvia and Ronnie was still not enough to get Sylvia to sign the divorce papers on my terms. I returned to the office Rachel had assigned me, angry and frustrated by the whole situation. Rachel found me sitting at the table with my head down and immediately asked what was wrong. That night with Jerry turned into a pregnancy, I replied, trying my best to keep my emotions under control. I can't wait any longer until I have the necessary incriminating evidence to force her to sign a divorce. God, how I want to get away from all this at least for a while, but I just don't have the opportunity. Let's go to Las Vegas, Dawn. At my expense, Rachel suddenly offered. I can't let you do this. If someone sees us boarding a plane together and Sylvia knows about it, I won't be able to even break even on the divorce. Dawn, my poor stupid friend, no one will see us except the two pilots of Dad's plane, and they know how to keep their mouths shut. When will we fly? What about housing? Why do you want to do this for me? I asked, and her smile grew wider with each question I asked. We can fly out today. We'll stay in a 2-room apartment that belongs to me and Dad, and I'm doing this because I myself was in your place, and there was no one to help me. John got pregnant with his secretary mistress, which is why we got divorced. Dad wanted me to stay with John, and all my so-called friends thought the same. But I'm not going to share my man with anyone. That's all. That's why I'm divorced. Come on, Dawn. What have you got to lose? You need to let off some steam, and Las Vegas is definitely the place to do it. If we take off in the next couple of hours, then by 2 o'clock Vegas time, we'll be able to pull the hands of one-armed bandits and sip cocktails. To hell with these 2 hours. I've had a packed bag in my trunk since that Friday when Sylvia killed our marriage. I can leave right now if you're ready too. I have some spare clothes in the condo, so yeah, I'm ready. Meet me at the entrance in 20 minutes. I need to run and tell my dad where I'm going so he doesn't get too worried when he doesn't see me for a couple of days, Rachel said with excitement in her voice before running out of the office. I called home and left a message on the answering machine saying that I was traveling on unforeseen business and would be gone until Saturday or Sunday. I felt no remorse for not calling Sylvia personally. I then called Fox Manufacturing and told Mindy that I would not be able to see her that evening or over the weekend because I was also traveling for family reasons. 20 minutes later, I was driving Rachel's Mercedes 450 SL to our town's municipal airport. I parked next to her car inside the hangar where her father's plane was parked. The two pilots were completing a preliminary inspection of the aircraft as Rachel and I boarded. 10 minutes later, we were already flying towards Las Vegas. I knew right away that we were flying over the Grand Canyon even before one of the pilots announced it over the intercom. Rachel opened her eyes after the pilot finished speaking and told me that we would be landing in a matter of minutes at a small airfield similar to the one at home. After landing, we taxied to a hangar located in the middle of a row of similar hangars. Rachel took the key to the padlock on the hangar door from her purse while I unloaded my suitcase. As soon as I was at a safe distance, the plane drove back onto the runway and immediately took off, apparently to return to our hometown. I didn't even hear the engine of the car inside the hangar start until Rachel honked at me, causing me to nearly jump in surprise. I loaded my suitcase into the back seat of the older Mercedes station wagon, which Rachel was now driving. Along the way, I tried to take in all the sights of that part of Vegas that I had never visited during Sylvia's and my rare trips to Sin City. The complex in which Rachel's apartment was located appeared to have been built decades ago, but it was well maintained. I had no idea how far the Strip and its famous casinos were from here, but Rachel assured me that as soon as we were freshened up from our flight, she would take me to any large casino that interested me. Half an hour later, I was sitting at the blackjack table at the MGM Grand Casino with $1,000 Rachel had given me up front. Over the next 3 hours, I managed to double that amount before I handed over my chips to the cashier, noticing that a couple of men in casino jackets had been hovering around my table for several minutes. I went across the street to Excalibur and won another 1,000 there until the same situation arose and I left. The next stop was the Tropicana Casino, where I only won 500 before the same men in jackets appeared next to the table. I decided it was time to leave, but I couldn't resist and tried the slot machine that I came across on the way to the cashier. I inserted $1,200 in chips into it. This gave 3 maximum bets. I had already turned to leave after the third spin when the machine's music gave way to louder bells and sirens. Looking back at the screen, I saw the flashing red inscription, "Big Winner." There were 5 red apples on the line, which meant that I had won 120 times the maximum bet, namely $48,000. It took all my eloquence to persuade the casino manager not to organize a PR campaign around my victory. I called Rachel and told her I was ready to move back into the apartment as soon as the manager started trying to persuade me to accept complimentary accommodation at the casino hotel. I took the cashier's check and, thanks to a little flirting from Rachel and the manager, received an armed escort from the casino office to the parking lot where Rachel's car was waiting for us. "Rachel, let me invite you to dinner. I still have $2,300 in cash from today," I told her during the ride back to the condo. "Great, Dawn. The restaurant inside Sam's Town has the best steak in Vegas, so if you don't mind, let's go there. You probably know all the local places better than I do, so everything suits me." We had a wonderful time chatting and enjoying each other's company. This was the second time we had such a pleasant conversation. Now Rachel didn't remind me at all of the spoiled brat I'd known in college, and I felt more relaxed around her than I had ever felt except for my time with Sylvia. I started to develop serious feelings for Rachel, and I didn't know if that was good or bad. Rachel showed no signs of feeling the same way, and deep down I understood that I could get burned again by my feelings for a woman, and for this I would be to blame. After dinner, Rachel and I returned to the apartment to rest. It had been a long day for both of us, and from the way she looked, fatigue was getting the better of us both. I fell asleep almost immediately after taking a hot shower in the guest room. At first I thought I was dreaming. Seeing that I woke up, she smiled and leaned towards me. The kiss she gave me at that moment was different from any I had ever received, including the ones with Sylvia. The sensation I experienced was like an electric shock that passed through my entire body and returned straight to my heart. If you think that 2 lost people have finally found each other and can heal their broken hearts together, then yes, I think the same thing. I don't know about broken hearts, but I realized that I found my true love. I know men don't think like that, but that's what came to my mind. Or rather, not in the head, but in the heart. I don't think, but I know that it is so. From today, I am completely yours, Dawn, if you want. But remember, I don't share. So this narrow-minded fool mind must remain in the past if you want to be with me. Lord, Rachel, why can I not want you after what you just gave me? It is I who must insist that you accept me. You are a beautiful, rich woman who can get any man, and I'm just a poor middle-aged guy who previously thought he was lucky with his wife until she took someone's advice and ruined everything. I have been and can be completely faithful to one and only woman if she is also faithful to me. Mindy is not a problem. Sylvia will be served with the divorce papers tomorrow as soon as we get home. I don't care who gets what anymore. I just want to get rid of this marriage. Now let's stop talking. I want to make love to you. No, you lie down, and I will love you. We basically made love to each other for the next 2 hours. When we were exhausted, we fell asleep in each other's arms, and I felt a peace that I had never felt before. Over the next 2 days, I walked around the casino during the day and made love to Rachel at night. When we boarded the plane Sunday morning to fly home, I had enough cash and bank checks to pay off the mortgage on the house Sylvia, and I planned to grow old together and pay off the loan on her car. I was going to pay them off and give everything to Sylvia, just to quickly end our marriage. I no longer cared who took what. Rachel and I had already promised each other that we would be together until the day we died, and I believed with all my heart that this would be the case. Back in our town, I picked Rachel up at her house and actually moved in with her that same day. I didn't call Sylvia or Mindy to let them know I was back. Monday morning, as soon as the bank opened, I paid off the balance of my house mortgage and car loan, then went into our old home and picked up only what I wanted. I left all the keys to the house, the front doors, the car, the keys to the shed along with the papers for the house and the car, as well as the wedding ring, on the table in the hallway where Sylvia usually threw her things when she returned home. After that, I went to Charles and asked how long it would take to prepare new divorce papers, where everything would go to Sylvia and the rest of the property would be divided in half. To my surprise, he said that the papers would be ready the next day and they could be handed to her that same day. He tried to dissuade me from such a step, but I said that I wanted to get freedom as quickly as possible, and then he stopped arguing and did as I asked. Leaving Fox Manufacturing was more difficult than I thought. Mr. Fox was like a father figure to me, and when I told him I was leaving, shock was replaced by pain that hurt me almost as much as my wife's betrayal. He agreed to accept my resignation only after I promised to stay for a month and teach one of the young engineers everything I know. Of course, it's impossible to teach everything in a month, but I didn't tell him about it. Mindy, I met another woman who has become very important to me, so I can't date you anymore, I told Mindy, inviting her to my now former office at Fox. She seemed to expect something different from me, judging by the shock and subsequent anger on her face. What do you mean, you met someone else, you bastard? She screamed so loudly that it could be heard in the corridor. Mindy, calm down, please. I kept telling you that I wasn't ready for a new relationship. I said we were just friends with benefits. You said to yourself that this suits you. I'm sorry, but I don't love you. I think deep down you understood this. Yes, I enjoyed our time together, and I think you did too. We can remain friends without benefits if you want. And then the tears began. I realized that Mindy had gone much further than our friends with benefits format suggested. Dawn, please don't do this to me. I love you and I want you to love me too. I will be a good wife, I promise. I will never change how she did it. And you know that I agree to everything in bed, if only you were with me. Please, Dawn. Sorry, Mindy. My heart now belongs to someone else, and she is very possessive. I can't give you what you want. Okay, then I'll go to Sylvia and tell her everything. Let's see who wins the divorce after this. I don't care. She will already get much more in the divorce than I will, but in the long run, I think I will come out with a plus in what really matters. I have found a woman whom I love with all my heart, and I know that she loves me back. I didn't want to offend you, Mindy. I kept saying that I didn't have feelings for you. I'm sorry, but please leave my office. I need to start training Jeff so he can take my place when I leave. Mindy burst into tears more than ever and ran out of the office, almost knocking over Jeff, who was standing at the door. What was that? He asked as soon as he entered. She was upset because I left the company. She seemed to be in love with me and hoped that we would be together after my divorce. But we don't have time for this, and I still have a lot to do. Mr. Fox wants me to teach you everything I know in a month. Of course, I can't transfer all the skills in a month, but I will have time to teach you a lot before I leave. Jeff and I worked until the evening and lost track of time. The ringing of my work phone brought us back to reality. Damn, look at the clock, Jeff exclaimed. Mary will kill me. I have to go, if you don't mind, Dawn. Of course, go. One broken marriage is already enough here, so run to your wife, blame everything on me, and do everything so that she forgives you. Hello, Sylvia, I replied, seeing her name on the phone screen. Dawn, where have you gone, and what's going on? She screamed. I found your wedding ring, a bunch of papers and keys on the table when I returned home. Looks like you're leaving. This is true. It's over. Tomorrow you will be served with divorce papers. You can take the house and car. We'll split everything else in half. But Dawn, I love you. Please don't do this. We can fix everything. Give me a second chance, she asked through sobs. I can't, Sylvia. I met someone else, and she makes me feel loved and wanted like never before, not even with you. And it was not I who destroyed our marriage, but you, when you gave yourself to someone else, ignoring my words. I'm sorry, but I don't love or want you anymore. You can ask your lawyer to file alimony against Jerry when you decide. Yes, I know you're pregnant, and this was the last straw. I wish you happiness with your new baby, but it's none of my business. My lawyer is Charles Wellington. His contact information will be in the divorce documents. Contact him if you need it, but don't call me again. Goodbye, Sylvia. I felt nothing, neither joy nor regret, when I heard her sobbing into the phone before I ended the call. I think my love for Rachel had already driven out the last sparks of feelings I had for Sylvia. For the next couple of weeks, Rachel and I lived like newlyweds. We made love or just hot sex in all the rooms of her big house, in the pool, and even in the back seat of one of her Mercedes. I think we both regretted that we didn't get together back in college. I tried not to think about my broken marriage and other possible obstacles to our happiness, but the idyllic life, like a cat in butter, was interrupted by two unexpected events. One came from within my marriage, and the other came from outside. Hello, Charles. I hope you have good news. Did Sylvia sign the divorce papers? I answered the lawyer's call in the morning when the first blow to my new life happened. No, I didn't sign it. The news is bad. Your wife's lawyer is going to petition the court to force you to go to couples therapy together. Unless we can find a way to shame or intimidate her into not procrastinating, then you will have to go to counseling, and that will delay the divorce. Did you watch or listen to the recording from my trip? Maybe there's something there that we can use. No, I didn't look through it. You said you didn't care how much you got, so I didn't bother. But now I can do it if you want. Yes, look. I couldn't even listen to her stories about what happened, much less see her. But do what you have to do. My patience has run out. I hired you because you have a reputation as a shark, so go ahead and tear her and her lawyer to shreds and win my freedom. The second shock came the very next day, when Rachel and I were called into her father's office. Rachel, is it true that this man lives in your house? Mr. Wells roared as soon as we sat down. Yes, Dad, Don lives with me. Why are you so angry? Rachel answered quietly, and there was a hint of fear in her voice, which instantly infuriated me. You're scaring her, you damn bastard. Stop yelling at her like she's a child and not. I flared up. But what? Firstly, she is my child, and I will talk to her as I see fit. Secondly, I don't want her to get involved with a married man who is no match for her and is only looking for benefits. She must find a man who matches her status and not someone like you. Shut up, both of you, just shut up. Rachel exploded from the anger that was in the air. Dad, Don is getting a divorce, and he is not looking for benefits from me. I love him. If you think John was the one for me, you are deeply mistaken. John didn't love me, he cheated on me and lied like he breathed. Don loves me, I don't know how it happened, but I know for sure that it's true. And I am also sure that he will be faithful and honest to me. Dad, don't ruin my happiness and don't act like an owner. Please do this for me. So you are going to get married when he gets a divorce, right? The father asked more calmly. Yes, we were going to quietly get married at City Hall. Neither Don nor I want a second lavish wedding. They wanted to invite only you and Don's parents as witnesses. Then you will have to conclude a marriage contract. I'm not going to lay claim to her fortune. I really love her. I'm ready to sign a marriage contract if it's fair, I said. Would you consider moving out of her house until your divorce is finalized? No, Dad. He has no other place to live, and I can't bear to be apart when we've fallen in love with each other like that. I understand that you are worried about the reputation of your family and company, but this is 2014, not 1954, so you need to be flexible. In the business world now, everyone only cares about profit, not who I live with. Don and I love each other, that's all that matters to me. Okay, I'm instructing the company lawyer to draw up a prenuptial agreement, Mr. Wells said, and then made it clear that the conversation was over. That afternoon, Charles called. This time, his news was positive. Don, good news. As soon as I threatened your wife to distribute a video of her having fun on the side, she agreed to sign the divorce papers. Maybe we'll use the original option, Where you would be in the black, huh? No, I don't want to take revenge on her. She needs our common property much more than I do. The main thing for me is to gain freedom quickly. By the way, can you look at the prenuptial agreement between me and Rachel tomorrow? I've had it for a week now, but I still don't understand much of this legal language. But you know them. No problem. Come on tomorrow at noon, bring a couple of sandwiches, and I'll buy drinks and chips, and after eating, we'll deal with the contract. Excellent, Charles. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I hope we can be friends after all this. You're welcome, Dawn. I'd be glad. I don't have many friends because of my activities. Okay, I'll wait until tomorrow. See you later. And as usual, he hung up without letting me answer. That evening, I shared the good news with Rachel and was rewarded with an incredible night, something I had never experienced before. After an amazing night with Rachel, I was in high spirits when I met with Charles to discuss the prenuptial agreement her father had insisted on. But very soon my joyful feelings gave way to anger and despair. Charles was trying to read the document I brought him for review while finishing the sandwich I bought him, so I couldn't tell from his reaction whether he liked what he was reading or not. When he finished eating, I immediately realized from his facial expression that he did not like this document. After finishing reading, he frowned and looked at me. "Did you even read this, Dawn?" he asked me. "No," I said, "I didn't read it. You know better about all this legal nonsense. Why are you asking?" Before I answer, what promises did you make about this marriage contract? I just said I wouldn't mind signing it if it was fair and reasonable. Then we have nothing to worry about because there is no justice or rationality in this shit. What do you mean, Charles? What does it say? In general, if you divorce Rachel in the future, regardless of the reasons and who is to blame, you will end up in a complete mess. You won't even be able to keep what you had before marriage, and that's definitely not fair. I can't believe Rachel knows what's in this document. She loves me and wouldn't set me up like that. It's all her father, I'm sure. He thinks I'm not worthy of his daughter, and his lawyer put it together. You want to bet that when I show this piece of crap, as you called it, Rachel will rip it to shreds. I won't make such a stupid bet. Rachel clearly saw this document because her signature is on the second to last page, dated and notarized. Maybe you don't know Rachel as well as you thought, Dawn. I definitely recommend that you, under no circumstances, sign the last page. As your lawyer, I'm done, but as your friend, you need to take this document and find out from Rachel what the hell is going on here. I was already planning to do this as soon as we finished. I find it hard to believe that Rachel is capable of this. Can you make a counterproposal that will be as offensive to her as this is to me? Yes, I can, but I will need a few days to prepare, and I don't want to waste my time or your money. Take this to Rachel, tell her how unfair it is to you, and see if you can work it out together. Who knows, maybe she just trusted her father that he would do the right thing and signed without reading. Okay, Charles, I'll go see her right now, I said as I stood up, grabbed the marriage contract and the brown envelope it was in, and angrily walked out of his office. At that moment, I was angry with Rachel's father because I was sure that he was the one trying to scam me. Over the next few hours, this anger will bounce like a ping-pong ball from one person to another until it gives way to a thirst for revenge. I drove straight to Wells Industries and walked up the back stairs to Rachel's office. I threw the marriage contract on her desk without designing a single polite word. It was clear from the expression on her face that my obvious anger frightened her. "Tell me you signed this without reading it, Rachel," I shouted. "I can't say that, Dawn, because I read it. I never sign anything without reading it, even my father's documents. Why are you so angry?" "I'm angry because there is no fairness in this contract, and now I'm even more angry because the woman I thought loved me unconditionally is agreeing to leave me with nothing if things don't work out. Apparently the wedding is canceled, and perhaps our relationship too. I won't sign this crap, and I think I should reconsider how I feel about you now that I know you're not who you say you are. I'll move my things into storage and stay in a hotel until I find an apartment. Perhaps I should even thank fate for the fact that your true nature was revealed before the wedding." I didn't let Sylvia disrespect me, and I won't let you either. Goodbye, Rachel. No, Dawn, wait. Something's wrong here. Please, Dawn, give me a chance to read that contract again, because I swear the one I read was very generous to you in case things don't work out between us. Although, until this very minute, I didn't even think about this option. I love you with all my heart, and I swear that I would never do anything to hurt you. Please wait a little, and we will figure it out together. Please. Okay, I'll wait in the waiting room, but don't wait all day. I paced the room while Rachel read the papers I had dropped on her desk. My nervous walking made her secretary too tense, and she, citing a break, hastily left her place. 45 minutes later, I heard a sob coming from Rachel's office doorway and turned my head in her direction. She desperately fought with herself not to burst into tears out loud, but tears were already flowing down her cheeks. I didn't think, but simply reacted and instantly took her into my arms. She tried to say something through her sobs, but I only heard her sobs and some vague, incoherent sounds. We stood there until she cried, and when the tears ended, she grabbed me by the neck and pulled me to her, capturing my lips with a kiss. That same spark ran between us again. Dawn, I swear on your mother's grave, this shit is not the contract I read and signed. I don't know how my father pulled it off, but the penultimate page is the only one I know. Please, let's sit down and figure out what he did, Rachel begged me. There's nothing to figure out here, Rachel. Your father showed you one document, made you sign it, and then changed the page with your signature into another version that he sent to me. He probably expected that I would see your signature and put my own without even reading it. We both know he doesn't think I'm good enough for you, right? Yes, as much as it pains me to admit it, deep down I always knew he didn't approve of you. In his eyes, we are just two stupid children who do not understand anything in life, and even from different social strata. Appearance is important to him, and my marriage to you, in his opinion, would ruin his reputation in high society. But I don't care about that, Dawn. I love you, I know that you love me, and I am sure that you will make me happier than anyone else. That's all that matters to me. Please, Dawn, let's get married, and to hell with my father's stupid prenuptial agreement. We could do that, but then what will your father do to destroy our marriage? We need to deal with this now so he understands that he can't dictate how we live our lives. If we close our eyes to this, he will find another way to separate us, and you know it as well as I do. You're absolutely right, Dawn. Let's go and tell him that we won't put up with any more crap like this worthless stack of papers, Rachel exclaimed angrily, and my alarm immediately turned to delight. Wait a minute, baby. I need to do one small thing first, I told the woman I knew as the true love of my life before I pulled out my multi-tool and removed the staple from the prenuptial agreement I was handed. When Rachel and I looked closely at her signature page, we saw two sets of staple holes. We walked hand in hand into her father's office, ignored the secretary who tried to stop us, and entered his sanctum sanctorum, interrupting him during a phone conversation with someone named Louis. What the hell? He began to shout, hastily hanging up, but Rachel shouted him down. Shut up, Dad. Just shut the hell up. I squeezed Rachel's hand hard enough to get her attention and silently told her to calm down. Although I was as angry as she was, I was able to control my emotions better, so I spoke to Mr. Wells in an almost normal tone. This prenuptial agreement charade you tried to get me to sign is what the hell, sir, I said, throwing the papers in his direction and watching the pages fly in all directions. Did you really think I would sign it without reading it just because Rachel already signed it? I love your daughter, but this love does not blind me like some infantile teenager. I've already told Rachel, and now I'm telling you. I cannot and will not sign this or any other prenup unless it is fair and reasonable. Rachel and I both know that you don't approve of me as her husband, but I love her more than anyone will ever be able to. I will do everything possible to make her happy throughout her life and provide her with everything she needs. You won't be able to provide her with the lifestyle to which she's accustomed, and you know it, Mr. Wells said irritably. He doesn't need to, Dad. If necessary, I can get used to the life that he can provide for us just to be with him. Now I finally know what love is, true love, and I am not going to lose it for anything. Don and I will get married as soon as his divorce is finalized, with or without your blessing. I don't need country club memberships, fancy parties, or everything else you think I should have in my life. All I ever wanted was to find someone who would love me completely and unconditionally, and now that I have found that person, I will do anything to not lose him. Dad, please don't make me choose between you and Dawn because I swear you will lose. Dawn and I are together, and we will stay together until death do us part. Please, Dad, stop being an insensitive business tycoon and go back to being the loving father you used to be. Leave my relationship with Dawn alone so we can continue to be happy. Okay, if you want to throw away your wealthy life for a mediocre existence with him, then so be it. I expect your resignation letter on my desk by this time tomorrow. Now get out of my office, Mr. Wells said, almost shouting. I expected her father to bring Rachel to tears after these words, but in her eyes I saw not tears, but a mixture of rage and determination as we returned to her office. Demands that I quit. I think I'll break like before. He thinks that I don't have the courage to resist him. Well, he's got a surprise tomorrow, Rachel muttered to herself on the way to her office. We are not to be disturbed for any reason, Lisa. In general, you can take the day off and lock the door when you leave, she told her secretary, entering the office and closing the door. As soon as she sat down at the table, she immediately picked up the phone. Over the next 2 hours, I sat and listened as she first called people I didn't know, getting their support for an emergency board meeting she was going to request for tomorrow, and then contacted the board members themselves and got the meeting to take place. The last call was from her father. Judging by how quickly she hung up, he was clearly unhappy. "Ratch, baby, what are you doing?" I asked carefully from the sofa. "What I should have done many years ago, but didn't have the strength to do it until you came into my life. I'm not going to bow down to my father anymore. Now that you're here, I can confront him. You will support me, Dawn?" "Yes, baby, now and always, unless you do something stupid like Sylvia." Rachel jumped up from her chair, walked the short distance between herself and the couch I was already standing on, and jumped into my arms. She started kissing me passionately, and we ended up christening her office sofa. When we woke up, it was already dark outside the window. On the way home to the house we now shared, I broke down and asked, "I know you're standing up to your father, but what exactly are you going to do, Rachel?" "With the votes I was promised today, I have 51%, and I can force the board of directors to replace my father with me as CEO. I won't let him kick me out of the company without a fight, and since I have to fight, I intend to win. Together, you and I can run the company better than he can." But I saw a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. "Rachel, I see that you have doubts. Please don't doubt it. I'm absolutely confident that together we can run your father's company better than he did himself. You are not afraid of change, and change is exactly what is needed for the continued success of Wells Industries. You said you trust me, so stop doubting and believe in my words. If you win tomorrow and we work together, Wells Industries will be better than ever. Then you need to trust it. Tomorrow I will succeed, so you better be prepared for a long journey," Rachel told me with a sparkle in her eyes. Rachel succeeded in ousting her father as CEO and stripping him of his seat on the board of directors. After some heated arguments and threats from Rachel, I was appointed to take his place. Her father angrily left the meeting, and although we both tried to make peace with him over the next few years, we did not see him again in person until the day we stood next to his coffin at a memorial service organized by his friends before the funeral. When I completely ignored her calls, Sylvia finally realized that I didn't want to talk to her and stopped calling. But for the 15 weeks between filing for divorce and the scheduled trial date, she called Charles at least twice a week and tried to get him to talk to me. Charles told me about these calls, but after my outburst of anger that time, when he finally tried to convince me, he didn't try again. My hopes that Sylvia had given up were in vain. A week before the trial, she unexpectedly waylaid me near the gym, where I continued to go 6 days a week. "Don, Please don't run away until you've at least listened to me, she begged that morning. I'll listen to you, but I don't have much time, Sylvia. Can't we at least sit down somewhere and talk? No, we can't. There's quite enough here. Say what you wanted to say, or I'm leaving, Sylvia. Dawn, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I've done. But I still love you, and I don't want to get a divorce. Why didn't you even try to help me save our marriage, Dawn? I don't understand why you just gave up. Did you hate me so much that you didn't even want to try? It's not that I hated you, Sylvia, but that you showed betrayal towards me. You listened to someone else, not me, the person you vowed to share everything with, to go through difficulties together and to cherish, rejecting everyone else. You broke those vows, not me. I did everything to make you happy because you were special to me. But after that night, when you gave yourself to another man, you stopped being special. You became just another selfish woman who didn't appreciate what she had until she lost it. We had something wonderful, but you killed our marriage that Friday night, and it won't change no matter what we do. You know I'm right. Could we go to couples therapy and stay together? Maybe. Could I eventually forget the traces you brought home from Jerry that night? Maybe. But could I ever feel the same way about you again? No way. Would you really want to live in such a marriage, Sylvia? What about the baby you had with Jerry back then? Did you think I would just raise someone else's child as my own because it was convenient for you? I knew you still wanted children after we found out I couldn't conceive. How did you imagine our life together with a child from another man? Let me warn you right away. If you are going to contest a divorce, think carefully. What do you think will happen if one of your nieces or your nephew gets to the post office before Sydney or her husband and turns on the disc, thinking it's a cartoon, but it turns out to be a video? How soon after this will Sydney allow you to be close to your children again? You know that you will need her support after the divorce, and if she sees this disc with your adventures, your relationship will deteriorate greatly. So it's better to let it go and let the divorce work out so we can both move on. Do you hate me so much, Dawn? She squeezed out through sobs after my tirade. No, I don't hate you, Sylvia. Honestly, I don't feel anything for you anymore. I've found a woman who makes me feel more loved than I ever did with you. I guess I should say thank you. If it weren't for your cheating, I would never have found my true love. I hope you two meet someone and be happy. But it's over between us. It's time to move on. Goodbye and good luck. I walked around her, got into the Mercedes that Rachel had given me after I returned the company car to Fox Manufacturing, and drove away, leaving Sylvia sobbing in her car. That was the last time I saw her. She didn't show up for the divorce hearing, and the court approved it after I confirmed that I agreed to all the terms. Sylvia got a house and car debt-free, plus half of everything else, and I got Rachel. Rachel and I got married 2 weeks after my divorce, with only my parents in attendance. Under our joint leadership, Wells Industries prospered. We later purchased Fox Manufacturing when Mr. Fox's health began to decline due to age. Rachel and I were happily married for 28 years until she died of cancer. After her death, I sold everything we had, bought a motor home, and have been traveling the roads of the United States ever since. I don't know what happened to Sylvia, but when I thought about her, I wanted to believe that she had found a man who loved her the way I loved Rachel, and that her life had turned out well, just like mine.